Masechta Shavous Daf Yud Samach Beis, but we're starting Chav Amud Aleph. But we're going to go over the Mishnah that we said yesterday. I just want to tell you, there's a difference between a shvua and a neder. A shvua goes on the gavra, on the person. The person says, "I'm not going to eat." A neder is going on the chefza. He says, "This chefza is going to be also to me." And yesterday we learned what are the shtaim. Till now we were learning about tumah, and now we're finally getting to the teichen of what the Masechta, the name of the Masechta refers to, Shavuos. Now we're talking about Shavuos. So we started off with Shavuos, the shtaim sheinama. The shtaim are the ones that are written in the pasuk. Lahara lahitiv goes on the future, la'asid. Like he says, oichel, he says, sure, I'm going to eat, and he doesn't eat. Or he says, lo yoichel, I'm not going to eat, and he ate. And then you have the two that are not written in the Torah, which are in the past. He says, achalti, and we find out it's aligan, he didn't eat. Lo yachalti, and he really did eat.
No.
So yesterday the Mishnah brings down, I don't understand. A shvur, when he makes a shvur that he's not going to eat, so Rabbi Akiva paskin that he'll be even not kosher. L'cheda, every davar asur has to be a kazayis. Why should it be? Why should it be asur with a kosher? So Rabbi Akiva answered to the Chachamim, look, this whole shvur is based on his words. It's on the gavra. It's not on the chefza. If it was taka on the chefza that he's answering the chefza, so he darf man auch mal kazayis. Aber da geht im Chama, es sein Dibur. Even given it sein Dibur. So I feel kosher. It's not really telling the chefza. So it's on the Dibur. Huh?
You can talk all day and all night. Where's the kazayis?
Yeah, but I'm saying by the Dibur is what is the Isur that he was over, not on the chefza. So if it was on the chefza, you would taka need a kazayis. But since it's on the gavra, and he was able on his Dibur, so I feel kosher. Zog the Gemara, Lememra, should we say, when it says in the Mishnah, the Sha'icha, he makes a shua for the future, then I'm going to eat. And he doesn't eat, that's how we learned the Pshat in the Mishnah. The Achilna Mashma is the Mashma, it's like we learned in the Mishnah, that he makes a shua, I'm going to eat, and the Peh Mamashi didn't eat. Is that the Pshat?
At what point, I mean, he can eat 3 years from now. I mean,
No. He says, I'm going to eat today, and he doesn't eat.
No.
Okay? So the Gemara's shaila is that the case? Udamina, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
We find that that's not the case.
Why?
Because there's a brisa, which is really like a Krish on the Mishnah, and he gives you 3 types of shvuos. Shvuah loy oichalacha. One is he absolutely says, a shvuah, I'm not going to eat anything of yours, right?
Okay.
And then he has the shvuah that our Mishnah says. Shvuah she'oichal lecha. And you know what the pshat over there is? These are 3 cases of where he's answering on himself to eat from his friend. Here you see the pshat is the opposite of our Mishnah. Shvua, he's making a shvua on the oichel shacha, on the food that's yours. That I'm answering the food of yours. Not like we learned in the Mishnah. Shvua she'oichel means I make a shvua that I'm going to eat and I didn't eat. No, here's a shvua that I'm not eating, the oichel of yours, I'm not eating. So it's not eating. The oichel means not eating. He's making a shvua that on his macholim that he wants to serve, he's not eating. Okay? So that's how he learns. The shvua sheichel lecha. Shvua, the oichel of lecha, echesnish is a shvua, is also on me.
So what's lecha?
Lecha, yours. Your
food, I'm
not going to eat. Lo shvua shelo yochel lecha, which is mashma, that the shvua is not pertaining to stam. It's pertaining on your food. That I will not eat your food. That I'm not gonna eat, right? Shouldn't be asa shvua. Only which part will be asa in the gather of shvua? Your food, not somebody else's food. So, but that's not negay. The negay is the second case. Shvul sheichel lecha. The pshat of shvul sheichel lecha is the opposite of how we learned in the Mishnah. Shvul sheichel lecha we made is said in the Mishnah pshat is ich macha shvul, I'm going to eat today, and he doesn't eat.
Yeah.
The shvul sheichel lecha means no. If the way the Bryce explains the Mishnah, the shvul I'm making a shvul sheichel lecha on your food that I'm not going to eat. Negative. That I'm not going to eat, not that I'm going to eat. So it's a slida. So really, in our Mishnah, it really means he makes a shvur, I'm going to eat, and he was
his own food.
he's going to eat. No, it has nothing to do with Bechal. The shvur has nothing to do with somebody else. He's making a shvur, like we said in the Mishnah. The Braisa learns the same lashon and learns the opposite. Like kasher. Kan in the Braisa b'misarvim by. It's talking about mit pressure. They were pressuring him and saying lechel to us, and they were pressuring him to eat. And he doesn't want to eat. So he says, enough of you. Shvur she'eichelecha. He says, I'm making a shvur. Your food is not going to be eaten. It's enough. Stop pressuring me. I'm making now a shvur, so you could stop. I made the shvur already. The guy is pressuring. Eat. He says, please stop. I don't want to eat. Eat. So he said, I'm going to stop. Any food that you give me, I'm not eating. And it's over. That's how you stop the conversation.
Because he said l'chor.
Yeah.
That forces it to age. Achila means I don't want to eat.
Right.
He said yourself.
Right. And he says, B'she'ein, our Mishnah is B'she'ein Misam B'lecha. Our Mishnah is talking about it. Nobody's pressuring him. He came on his own and he said, I'm not going to eat today. Masnisin, B'she'ein Misam B'lecha. Our Mishnah is talking about where they're not forcing him to eat. But in the Braisa, it's talking about where they're forcing him to eat.
So you can't compare it.
You can't compare. He keeps on saying, I'm not going to eat. I'm lost him to stop. He's eat. I'm not going to eat. Eat. I'm not going to eat. So that's what it means when he makes the shvur to stop it. He says, shvur, meaning we are mefarish that. What does it mean? Shvur she'eichlecha means on your food I'm not eating. So stop. That's how he stops it. So that's it. Ravashi says, "Ni learn shvur she'i eichlecha." It means a shvur that I will not eat. In fact, you just said shvur shaloi eichel. Why are you saying a second lashon? You just said shaloi eichel. Now you said I eichel. I eichel also means I covet means nishkin covet. If it's I covet. But he's saying what? It's the same word. He says, no, it's not. We could think about the time. I would have thought, Lishnat itkilale. It could be he's stuttering and he's, we don't know. Maybe he meant sha'aychalach. We don't know if he meant she'i. We don't know if he, even though it came out of his mouth, he's stuttering. So Kamashwan, we say, no, if that's what you heard, the words were e. A speech therapist, he's right. But if that's what you heard, that's how we take it. At face value, he's not going to eat, and that's what he's teaching us. Mifta, the lashon mifta is lashon bitu. Stam, the words you say, stam shvur. That's the shvurs, the shvur that we're talking about. Bitu is fasai. So mifta. What's if he says mifta kikazu alai? He says the lashon mifta that the Torah uses for shvur, instead of saying shvur kikazu alai that I'm not going to eat this cooker, he used the lashon of the Torah mifta kikazu alai. So or he says isar. It says the osra isar by the lashon shvur. He says isar kikazu alai. He used the lashon isar instead of shvur. Or so he says all this the side mifta and side isar. If he used it in the same lashon as saying shvur, instead of using the word shvur, he said mifta kikazu alai, or he used the word isar kikazu alai. Shvur is a regular shvur. So the mother isar. The isar of isar. What's the lashon? What's the isar? What is he going to be over? Meaning, does he have to bring a carbon or not? Then he's chayiv on his aveda for shvuas bitzui. A carbon. But if it's not going to be a lashon shvua, a pot, he's going to be a pot for a carbon. If he said isa kikazu alai. In fact, how did it become a shaila? You just said isa is shvua, and now you're saying isa. What is the ged of Isa? Is it a ged of Shvur that is going to be Chayv and Karban? Isa kikazu alai.
So it's kikar.
Shvur kikazu alai. Instead of using the word Shvur, he used the word Isa.
What's kikar? What's the?
Kikar is a loaf of bread.
He's
mastering this. So instead of using the word Shvur, he used Isa. So now the Gemara all of a sudden has a shaila about the word Isa. You just said, Frank, your mother, Ima Isa. Shavua. What do you mean imat oima if Isa is a shvua? Well, Amnit, you said just in the beginning of the Braisa, Isa shvua. You said Isa is a shvua. Why all of a sudden did you become a Sfeis? It's a kasha on this Braisa. How do you start off saying Isa shvua, and then you say what's together from Isa? Is a shvua that you're going to be chayiv if you're or not?
The Tana uses that kind of expressions, and that's how they talk.
So you're going to have two answers, Abai and Rav, in the pshat of these words, because it's very ambiguous, this Braisa. Abai says, Hachikama. This is how, this is what the kavanah of the Tana was. Mifta, shvur. Mifta is a lashon shvur. Isor, mitvas, b'shvur. Isor is mitvas, means a hatfasa, an attachment to the shvur. Lamash, he made a shvur on this kikar. Oh, so he says, he makes a shvur on this loaf of bread, I'm not going to eat. And then he says, Isa, that this kikar should be just like this kikar. So that's called an attachment. That's atvasa. So he says, Isa's nicht the shvur itself. The Isa, the shvur hat gemacht, he made one loaf of bread. The shvur. He made a real lashon shvur. No, he said the lashon shvur. The shvur kikar zuah. And then he says, Isar on the second one. Bishvur. It should be attached. It should be similar to the first kikar. So the shaila was, so Isa, so that was the shaila. Isa. Do we say when he said Isa the hatfasa? Does the hatfasa have the same gedarim as the bread where he actually made a shvur? That if you're over, you're going to bring a carbon. If you're going to be over on the second loaf of bread. And so, if it's going to have a din like shvumi piv dami, chayim is chayim. Lav, but if it won't have the din like the loaf of the bread where he said the lashon shvua, it's a different gather. Then pata, you'll be pata.
On the second thing.
On the second loaf of bread where he used the lashon isor. In fact, you wonder why the mifta shvua. How do you know
But
mifta?
on the first one, he did make it a
He said shvua zuah lai, shvua kika zuah lai, actual shvua. Yes. Yeah. So the Isa should attach itself to the loaf of bread where he used the lashon shvua. Right, that's the shaila. Should he be chayiv on the second loaf of bread? Should it have the same severity, even though he used on the second bread Isa, as that this loaf of bread should be similar? He used the lashon to the first loaf. On the first one, he made a shvua. Absolutely, that's the only way. Thank you.
Somebody else made a shvua and he said, "I want it to be the same."
We're going to talk about it soon. They're very simple. Thank you. The mifta shvua. How do you know bichlal that mifta means a shvua? How do you know it has that the word mifta is shvua? The chsev, because it says in the pasuk, "Oy nefesh kisi shava." And what's the next word? Levate bisvasayim mifta. It's a lashon mifta. So you see, movement of the lips, but he uses si shava with the word bitui, with mifta levate. In fact, just like you said, mifta is a lashon of shvua because it associates the word levate with sishava. Isa nami, I could show you, is associated with the word shvua. Where do we see that? Kol neida v'chol shvuas isar. So Isa is associated with shvua, so Isa should be a shvua also. Ella says the Gemara. The Gemara says like this: the shaila was, from where does the Tana know the Isa mitvas b'shvuahu? How do you know Isur is attaching itself to a shvua and mifta is not? A mifta is a shvua on its own. So he says, the chsiv, it says in the pasuk, v'mbeis isha nadar. Let's say, if the woman, while in the man's home, she made a neder, or isa al nafsho b'shvua, or she asked it upon herself, isa with a shvua, and the man heard it, v'hachrish law. So it says, v'kama kol nadar v'chol isa she asa al nafsho yakum. So her nadarim stay. Okay. So what does it say? Bi shvua. What does it say? Asa isa nafsha. She attached on this second loaf bishvua to the one that she made with the shvua, with the one from before. So because bishvua, isar in the shvua, you're saying the isar should be attached into the shvua one that she made, that she made. In fact, you might have mifta nami haksib lechol asher yivate. The bishvua. So it's same idea. He's being attaching it into the shvua. So
both are similar.
Both are similar. So why don't you say Mifta is also Atfasa? Just like Isa's Atfasa, meaning that it should attach itself to the
On
one.
Mifta, we do say on Mifta.
No, we say on Isa it's Atfasa. Mifta we say the Lashon Shua. Alena Shuvavas, we should say it's Atfasa to the Shua. Elam Abaya says like this: Mifta is Zicher Shua. From where do we know that? From here. It says, if this woman will be to the man, and she will have nedarim on herself, or she will move her lips and asa herself on isurim. So look, in that pasuk, you don't see a lashon shvua by mifta. It says v'ilu shvua loikama. It doesn't say a lashon shvua. So it's not attaching to a shvua. It says mifta, and it means shvua there. B'ma yasa nafsha asatzma. With what lashon did she ask herself? It says asher asal nafsha. Well, she asked herself. Mifta lashon mifta. It has to be mifta. So you have a lashon that's a lashon. You see, it's a lashon shvua gamor. You know the story of mifta pifta abi left. Never heard of?
No, let's go back.
Okay, weiter. Okay, Rabbi Amma. Rabbi gesagt. Okay, good.
We're behind.
We'll go. We'll say that then. Rabbi Amma, like Lameimelach. But I will say to you, mitvas b'shvua. That the hatfasa, it attaches itself into a shvua. It's lav k'metzih shvua b'pivdami. Rabbi says, I disagree with you. This whole concept of hatfasa, that the second loaf gets attached to the first loaf and it becomes us. I don't. This concept is not true. He says I have a whole different shot on the one. The Gemara had a shaila isa also mau. So he says my pshat, it's not the shot. The pshat is not if the hatfasa has the same din as the shvua. The second loaf of bread has the same din as the one that he actually made the shvua. Nah, he says the hatfasa knows such a concept. Novas. He says what was the shaila by Isar? He says like this. There's no such a thing as atfasa. And Vachi comment, this is how he's saying. Mifta is shvua. Mifta is a shvua. He said, not shvua. He says also shvua. But Isur, the Isar, hetila akas b'nedel shvua. We know the Isur of Isur is put between, in the pasuk, we'll soon say, it says, Bim beis isha nadara, and then it says, Oy asa Isa al nafsha b'shvua. So you see the word Isa is between nadara and shvua. So which halacha will it have? A neder or shvua? So he says like this. So the answer is like this. First we should know the Isa was placed between neder and shvua. So what's the halacha? So he says, if he used the lashon of neder, kikazeh alai, right? He says Isa kikazeh alai. So then it's similar to neder.
But when he said Isser, he said it a lie. You mean
A lie is neder. So that's neder. But if he said B'Shoin Shvua,
You're saying that Allah is shvua.
neder. No, kikazeh. Shvua is zeh. Is kikazeh.
Yeah.
A lie is he's saying this should be us on me. This food should be us. Hey, kikazeh a lie, kikarbon. That this kikah should be us to me like a carbon.
Yeah.
So he's making the chetza asa. But when he says that, he doesn't say it should be like a carbon. He says, so over there, by a neder, I want to just tell you, if he's over b'shegeg, he's butter from a carbon. It's only by shvur that you chayav for shvur is bitui. But if he said b'shoin shvur, he said, Isar, shalai eichel kikazeh. He said the lashon Isar that he's not going to eat this kikazu. I'm sorry, kikazu. He's not going to, I'm not going to eat this kika. So that's shvur.
what did he say? What did he say before?
He says this piece should be also like a carbon. This chatzah should be also. He's saying, I'm not eating. I'm not eating. I'm myself. Shvur. That's a lashon shvur.
I'm getting all kinds of messages over here.
Why are you getting such the messages?
Because let's go back to this one.
Okay. So, where do we find the lashon isur is stated between neder and shvur? So it says im beis isha nadara. And then it says oy asa isa, so it comes after the word nadara, and then it says al nafsha b'shvua. So you see, it's between neder and shvua. And Rav and Abaya, the way they learned pshat, you remember Abaya learned the pshat was It's a suffix if the atfase, if the second kicker will have the same severity as the first kicker. That's how, because atfase, Abaya holds, atfase is a shvur, is a degree of a shvur.
Has a status of
A status of a shvur. Rava learns pshat, no. The Lashon Isar is between the Neda and Shvur, so which one is it? So he says, it depends. If it's used B'Lashon Neda, it's a Neda. If it's used B'Lashon Shvur, it's a Shvur.
They could come out that they both will agree, right?
Not by Atfasa. By Atfasa, that
No,
concept
Abaye says Atfasa is a shvur.
is a Shvur, not Rava. Rava says,
But if it's said in a certain, in the same motion,
that's not Atfasa. That's a Neda or Shvur. Atfasa means you're being Madama. It's not a Shvur or a Neda. It's neither.
But he could use the word Isser, and also it'll be considered a shvur.
Or be considered as a Shvur mitzat attachment. Rava
That's a
doesn't.
Abaya, but Rava says
Rava,
Abaya.
I don't hold of attachment. He uses the Lashon Isur. The Lashon Neda, it's a Neda. The Lashon Shvur, it's a Shvur. But but it's not being used as an attachment.
But Isser could be according to Abaya, it is a shvur if it's attached. And according to Rav, if it's an Isser, if it came out as a
If he
shvur,
said it as a
The
Neda,
Lashon,
right?
the Lashon.
Yeah, but he has
The
to say.
Lashon Shvur.
But he cannot say it in a Lashon. I'm being Medamed.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so he says Basel Tamai. They both go according to their reasoning. Where do we see that? The Itma. We learned Befedish. Hamatvis b'shvua. Abai Yoma kibbetz yeshua mipivdami. Abai says ultimately he paskin, even though he had the shaila if it has a din like the shua or not. Abai at the end paskin that it does. And Rav Amalav kibbetz yeshua mipivdami. It's zero. It's nothing. There's no such a thing. Meis effect the Gemara Kasha. Aizeu Isa Ambateda. What is this Isur of the Torah? He takes upon himself that he's not going to eat meat or drink wine like the day that his father passed away. So he says from here you have a mucker that on the yard site of a father or mother, people fast. Okay? So he says that this day, that I wanted this day to be like the day of his father's yard site. Oy kiyom shemeis by Pliny, and Rashi says it means his teacher. If it's his Rebbe who passed away, they had a minute to fast also. Oy kiyom shenerek by Gedalia ben Achikam. Gedalia ben Achikam was really killed on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, but Nitcha, so we fast Gimel Tishrei, 7 Gedalia.
There's people that fast on the day of the yard sale.
Yeah. He's saying Mikan Mocker,
It's a
Mocker.
minute today.
Yeah. Oy kiyom sheroy Yisrael mechubana.
But yes, it was.
Or like the day that he saw Yerushalayim and its destruction. So then he's also to eat meat and drink wine. This is only if he already had accepted upon himself the neder to not eat meat and drink wine on the day on the yard side of his father. It has to be that he already made that neder when his father, if his father passed away, he says he makes a neder every yard side I'm going to fast and not drink wine or eat meat. Only then could he say today should be like his father's yard side. If he didn't do it, it's not going to be a neder. It has to be a guy who made that took upon himself that minute. Okay, Zakti, but a bishloim la'abaya. It's understood according to Abaya mitzvah matvis b'neder neder, because we learned before attachment to a neder is a neder. A matvis b'shvur. Attachment to a shvur is a shvur. And Lefi Rava says no such a concept. Matvis, you attach it. What are you being madama? He says no such a thing. You have to have a neder or a shvur.
So if he said that lost according to Rabbi, you wouldn't have to fast.
No. Rabbi is going to say like this. He says, "Hachi tritz." Say like this. The Pirush Nebraisa. Is Isa Neder Amabatera? What is the lashon that the Torah says that a person asks himself with a neder? Again, that he said,
Yeah.
First, he has to specify what the neder is. The neder is, I'm not going to eat meat and I'm not going to drink wine. And part of the neder has to be kiyom shemeis boy of, like the day that his father died on the outside, or kiyom shenerek boy plenty, or like his rebbe. He has to say two parts. There are two parts.
Why don't you compare with the day of Father's Day?
He says that's how the neder works. He brings a raya. Shanada Obama Isayim, that he had to actually make a neder about his father's yahrzeit first, that he's not going to eat meat and drink wine.
On the yard side.
So on the yard side, then he says there's the first part. He has to articulate what the neder is. Not say I'm being medamastam. He says I'm not like Abaye. Abaye says this meat or this kikar should be like that kikar. No, he says number one, you have to say what your fast. What are you doing? What's your neder? Your neder is clearly I'm not eating meat. I'm not drinking wine. Second part, he says, and you have to be medameh to a day that you don't eat meat and wine, which is the yahrzeit of his father, and he had to actually make such a neder on his father's yahrzeit.
So then it's a straightforward neder. It's not
Yes, straightforward
not a
neder.
advosa.
Right, that's what he's saying. That's what Rav is answering. That's what the pasuk means.
He doesn't say every
Ma-
year the same thing over and over. Well, if it said once, it's enough for the whole time. If it said I'm going to,
Every time he makes a neder, he has to say clearly what the neder is. So my time, in fact, we want a white talk. Where do we see he has to do these 2 pointers? That he has to actually say what the neder is and compare it to a day of yahrzeit. So on the crowd, it says in the pasuk, "Ish ki yidoi neder laHashem." The lashon neder is extra. Yidoi neder. You don't need twice the lashon neder. It says yidoi. What does he say neder? So he says at yidoi b'davar hanodor, that he has to be toiler his neder in something that's also because of another neder. But if he was tailored in something that was already asur milchatchila, right? If he was tailored in something that was asur milchatchila, then it's not a neder, because that it has to be in something. It has to be similar to another case where it was mutter and he made a neder. But if it's something that was asur milchatchila without him making the neder, that's not going to be. The second part is not being fulfilled. Shita, of course. If he's saying a neder, I'm not going to eat meat and drink wine like the neder I made on my father's yahrzeit, not to eat meat or drink wine. Why do I need this brayse that teaches this din? I needed like the day he says I'm not going to eat meat or drink wine, like the fast day that we have by Gedalia ben Achikam. Now, Gedalia ben Achikam is already also Nishmitzad Zayin Neder. That's already accepted Neder on him. So, Sal Katayt Chamina, I would have thought, the Kiva and the Ki Loi Nodar, because since he didn't have to make a Neder by Tzem Gedalia, in order that it should be also from Basar
The
Yaya.
original neder.
Yeah, he didn't. Nami also. So, it would have been anyway also if he wouldn't have made the Neder on Tzem Gedalia. It would have been forbidden to eat meat and drink wine. So when he makes the neder, it shouldn't be also. So I love mitzvahs neder who. I should say that vasa, by comparing it to the neder of Gedalia ben Achikam, it shouldn't be a tvasa. Kamash Malana, he says it is, because
Who says it?
this is all Rava. That's the chiddush.
Well, but you said before, Rabbi doesn't hold for that class.
It's not a tvasa. It's the ikir. The ik is the actual making the neder. He has to start off with making a clear neder. I'm not going to eat meat. I'm not going to drink wine. Abaye says he doesn't say this.
Yeah, but here you're talking about that. You're talking about
He has a little bit. The ik of the neder is the first part. When he makes a neder, I'm not going to eat meat or drink wine. That's the ik part of the neder. Yes, there's a little bit of atfasa, but that's not what makes the main neder. Main neder is not. He said the lashon neder. Yeah, and he says, what's the chiddush here? So first he wants to say Gedalia ben Achikam. Rashi started off saying, and he slugs it up, that the whole isa of eating on Gedalia and the fast of Gedalia ben Achikam is only with the Abanan, and Aneda is with the Raisa, so it supersedes the fast day. Then he says, no,
What do you mean supersedes?
making a neder is ben Torah. Gedalia ben Achikam is only with the Abanan that it's also. So more strength, of course, yeah. So he says, but he slugs that up. He says that what's the reason? Because a neder is not on the person. A neder is on the chefza. So, like I told you, when it says a person says, "I'm not going to eat matzahs," he says, "Ashua, I'm not going to eat matzahs." Then he's on the issa. But he says, "This matzah should be awesome to me that's a good neder because he's not going against the Torah. You understand? Here also,
Because he could be eating a different matzah.
right. It's this matzah. So here he says, I'm not by a neder. He's saying on the chefza, I'm not going to eat this meat and drink wine. So it's not going on the person. Anyway, so this, or you can learn like he originally thought that it's midrabanan and that neder is midraisa and it strengthens it more. Okay. Says the Gemara, even Rabbi Yechon holds of Rava that what? That you have to, by a neder, you have to say a neder. There's no atfasa. The Chiyasa Ravin, when the Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Rabbi Yechon said, somebody who says, Mifta lo yoichel lecha, and so
Said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan.
yes, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, so Rabbi Yechon said that somebody who says, Mifta lo yoichel lech, or he says, Isor lo yoichel lech, it's not hatfasa. He considers both shvua. He says the both are lashon shvua. Okay, something. So you see, Rava Befedish doesn't hold about tvasa. The lashon iser is a lashon from shvua. Something. When Avdimi came, Amar Rabbi Yechon said, "Oichal v'loy oichal," and he was able on his shvua. He says, "I'm going to eat," and he didn't eat, or he said, "I'm not going to eat," and he ate. So he says that's sheker. That's called a lie. That's how I'll say Mahacha.
Well, he could change his
And
mind.
what do you mean he can change? He made a
He says he
shvur.
doesn't want to eat.
But he made a shvur already. He's being over on his words.
He took it, he made a note.
Oh, yeah. That's how I'll say Mahacha. And that's how it's from here. Lo yisi shavu l'shmila shaker. Where's the warning in the Torah? It says, don't swear my name falsely. Now, how about a chalti v'lo yachalti? He says, I ate already. And he didn't eat. Or he said, I didn't eat. And he really ate. He says that, where's the warning from? Shav. But from Shvur Shav, it's almost like Shav. Shav means, as though he says something that everybody knows it's not true. He takes a piece of stone or a piece of wood, he says, this is real gold. When it was Baba Mises. So it's Shav. Here, it's a little different. Here he says, I ate, and he really didn't eat. It's umzisterei, but the per mamish, it's a Shvur of Sheker. So he says, but it's more considered as shav because there's no use of what he's saying. V'asara say mahacha, and the asara is from here. Lo yisisa shem lekech lashav, that you shouldn't say Hashem's name in vain. Let's talk about something in the past. It happened already. You swing. I didn't eat, and I ate. It's in the past. But b'peil mamish, he lied, and that's asara. He'll be chayv a carbon. That's the two which are the rabbanon. Kleinamais. What is kleinamais? Is a neder. Oiva is he's over that he shouldn't make his words chal. You make a neder, you have to keep to your words.
What's the clean
It's a neder. He says that this thing should be us to me. Okay, basically, effectively, it says shav v'sheker echad hey. Shav and sheker is one. My love, how could a shav and sheker be the same? Only if you're talking about the past, that it's equal. The only way you could say that shav and sheker are one, only if you're talking about the shvur that he said lo yachalti or achalti, which is in the past, because that's what it has in common with shav. So alma zetman achalti v'lo yachalti. So you see that achalti v'lo yachalti is sheker. So why are you saying it? We learn it out from Shav. If you're calling it, the Mishnah is calling it Shavous, Sheker v'Shav is one. So Sheker should have been learned out from Leisi Shav v'Shvila Sheker. And you're saying the past, lo yachalti, which you now call Sheker, you're learning out from Shav. You're calling it Sheker. Says Gemara, Midi, what's your shayla? Hakidisa. Really, when he says one, he says it doesn't mamish mean one. The shvur is one inyan, and the shav is another inyan. He's saying they're two separate inyanim. So what are you saying? Sheker v'shav is one. He says the b'dibur echad. It was Nevish said lo yisana b'reyach eit shoker, and lo yisana b'reyach eit shav. Nevish said it as one dibur, just like we find by zach v'shomer or zach v'shomer. Yeah, the Tanya like we learned in the Brayso, zach v'shomer b'dibur echad nemru. It said in one dibur. It says Zalchoy Esayim Lekachrei, And then it says, Shami as Yom HaShabbat L'Kacha, it was said as one dibur. Shein yochel apel l'daber, a human being cannot speak this way. Uma shein ha'izin yochel l'shmaya, and so a ear can't even hear both. It was said in one shot. So it's understood by Zach L'Shama, but dibur achad nemru, it was said as one dibur. Kidder Rabba Rabba, like Rabba Rabba, Rabba Rabba, that even though they're clown noshim up to from fulfilling mitzvahs asay shazman grama, but noshim chayavos bekiddush hayom. Noshim are mechuyev in the kiddush. They hear the kiddush Friday night. Dvar Torah, but not Torah. Dama Kra, because in the pasuk it says zocher. It's not as the chiyuv is more saying the words of kiddush. Here he's going to say wine. Wine is under zogans midabanim. Maybe the wine is also midaisa. But for sure the kiddush, the part. Okay, yeah. So he says, it says, and we say, whoever is in the ged of Shmira that has to watch and not do any melachas on Shabbos, which includes women, Yeshna Meschira, are also in the ged of Schira, which is Kiddush. These women who are mechuyev in Shmir Shabbos, because so the chayab all the mitzvahs lo yisasei, so therefore isnu nam b'schira. They're also included in the kiddush on wine, let's say. Aval hacha, but b'negeya to shvuas shav and shvuas sheker. Why do you have to say it? What do you come to teach us over here? What halacha are you learning out from shav and sheker, right? Being said as one, what limud? Says in Gemara,
they're really different, right?
Yeah. So he says, to tell you, just like a person gets malchus on a shvur shav, he gets also on a shvur sheker. In fact, you want to clap a lie, it's the opposite. Where would be a bigger chiddush? By shav. Shav is a lav shein by meiser. By shvur sheker, it could be a lav sheish by meiser. He says, shvur shaloi oichel, ve'oichel. So it's a lav sheyesh by meiser.
That he did eat.
That he did eat. So there it's a lav sheyesh by meiser. There it's, so that's not the chiddush. It's to start off that way. So he's Elaima said, you're right. Just like a person gets malchus for saying, I'm not going to eat, and he eats, which is a lav sheyesh by meiser, he gets malchus. So too he gets malchus al shav, which is a lav shein by meiser. You said achalti, lo yachalti, lo yachalti, achalti. These are not a lav shein by meiser. It's all in the past. So, and nevertheless, he tells you get malchus. Why? Because it says ki lo yanaka Hashem is Hashem Yisa Eshmei Lashav. It says Hashem won't clean it off, but Bezdin we learn out of Yanaka.
Malchus if he says Ashur Shav?
Oh, so he says because it's a pasuk, a limit from the pasuk. Otherwise, he wouldn't. You're right. But he says it's a limud. You're right. You're right. So he says because it says Kilo Yanaka Hashem es Hashem Yisa Shmei L'Shav, and we learn out Hashem bevad hu Yilo Yanaka. It says only Hashem won't clean off the sin of the Shvur Shav, but Aval Bezdin Shamata through Malchus, they will be able to clean it off. Thank you. What a pshita. High lab, they're both a lab. Sai Shvur Shaka, Sai Shvur Shav. We know it's in the Torah, it says Asur. So what is he? No, so what is he? What's the Chiddush? Says he want to the time. I would have said Kedam Le Rapapa Labai, like our Papa had said to Abai. Lo Yinake Klau. I would have thought that there's no way of cleansing the sin of Shvur Shav. Kamashmalan comes the pasuk and teaches us Kedushani later, like we learned that only Hashem will not cleanse it, but Bezdin will. He by same. If you want, I'll tell you another answer. Kishem. Yeah, Kishem should maybe carbon. I'll have it as Shvur Sheker, just like he brings a carbon. If he was able to be shoygig, a carbon was bitui, and a Shvur Sheker kach maybe carbon al Hashem. So too on Aveda for the past, he's going to have to bring a carbon. If he said a chalti, lo yachalti, a carbon. Now he's saying a carbon. Rabbi Akiva, and it follows the shita of Rabbi Akiva, the mechayiv l'sha'avar. He's going to be mechayiv a carbon on a avera of a shvur that he made in the past, kila haba, like a shvur that he makes in the future.